Neat. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started here. I just want to confirm that everyone can see my screen. Everyone can see my screen? Great, fantastic.
Yep.
All right, so welcome everyone to today's session on the do's and don'ts of rapid scaling. Before we dive in here and I introduce our fantastic lineup of speakers, I want to just cover a few quick housekeeping notes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use that Q&A or chat feature in your Zoom webinar panel. We'll have some time at the end of the session to take your questions live. We are recording this session, so I will send a link out to the recording within 24 hours so that you can share it around. And lastly, if you are having any technical difficulties, you can use the caret icon next to your microphone and make some adjustments there or join in via phone. So today we are going to do a quick introduction from Natalie, our EMEA sales director here at Mixpanel, before diving into the juicy part of today's session, our panel discussion. As you can see, stacked lineup here today. And lastly, we'll leave some time at the end for your Q&A, again, using that chat or Q&A feature in your Zoom webinar panel. And without further ado here, we again have a very lovely panel of joiners, primarily from the Nordics, but rather than me introducing them myself, I'm going to turn the screens off here and let them do that themselves. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Natalie, who's our moderator today.
Hi, and I've already had some issues with Zoom, so I'm on my phone, so excuse me if the sound isn't perfect. But welcome to our session today, Going International, the do's and don'ts of rapid scaling. I'm very excited to be joined by this real A-list panel today. This team of panelists represents a huge expanse of experiences from the Nordics and also across the world, from B2C companies to B2B. Every single one of these people has been or is currently responsible for scaling businesses of all types. So we're going to attempt to take on a pretty meaty topic today, how you can scale your business internationally in a smart and sustainable way. Hopefully, you'll find the next 40 minutes really valuable, and then we'll try and keep some time for questions. So pop any questions in the chat as we're going along. Before I start the introductions, I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. So I'm Natalie Kuzalez. I'm responsible for Mixpanel in EMEA. And Mixpanel is a San Francisco-based organization. It was founded in 2009, and it has one simple focus, which is to produce the best product analytics platform in the market. So we've also had a tremendous scaling journey, and we've now got over 27,000 customers all across the world. And some of the names, the big brand names you'll know is Uber, Deliveroo, CNN, but we also have about 150 customers in the Nordics region, with some of the brands that you may be familiar with, like Vivino, Easy Park, Mobile Pay, and many others. We have a strategy of product-led growth, which means that we want to grow with our customers and their success. So for us, we've tried to cultivate that by having a very strong collaboration with startups, and we offer a very attractive startup plan where you can get $50,000 of credits, use the platform, learn how to use it to help and support your growth strategy. So anyway, enough about me and Mixpanel, and let's introduce our panel of experts. So going around the room, Andreas, do you want to kick off? If everybody can just say a little bit about themselves, their company, and where you are in your expansion journey. Thanks,
Okay.
Andreas.
Thanks, Natalie. My name is Andreas Studyev, CEO of Neptune Software. And I joined Neptune, or two other founders of Neptune back in 2012, nearly 10 years ago. So what we do, so in the global tech market with constant demand for developers to support companies and organizations journey on digitalization, we offer to the market a no-code, low-code development platform. And that means fast and easy application development in a visual interface. We reduce complexity so that everyone, business developers and engineers, can produce advanced applications, lower time to market, and limiting the need for professional coders. We started out 10 years ago, as I said, with a clear focus towards the SAP market, beautifying, simplifying, and mobilizing SAP. And from there, expanded our product to any backend system and cloud services. This year, we're recognized for the second time in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for multi-experience development platforms. We have 3 million licensed end users, 600 customers worldwide in 44 countries. Companies such as Johnson & Johnson, Walmart, Vodafone, our clients closer to home, Volvo, Statkraft, Wine Monopoly, Equinor, Elkjøp Power, Bohus, and of course also Bekur, part of this panel today. In total, 80 employees, 27 nationalities, 5 country offices, and 95% plus of our revenue is outside of Norway.
Great. So you'll have loads of things to share today.
Exactly.
Let's move on. Let's move on to Lars running. Do you want to tell us all about yourself from your car?
I know. Yeah, I'd love to, Natalie. So my name is Lars Running, and I'm the founder and CEO of Iluna. And Iluna is a D2C and B2B app and platform that is helping individuals and organizations become more sustainable. And we do that through habit change programs that are based on science. And then we are helping companies and individuals step by step satisfying UN Sustainable Development Goals. Longer term, our ambition is to become a world-class platform enabling people and organizations to connect, change, transact products and services. So in a way, becoming sort of a LinkedIn for people and organizations who care. We were founded 2 years ago in 2019. We launched our first consumer version of our app earlier this year, and we already have thousands of users in more than 50 countries. Iluna is headquartered in the UK, but we are a fully remote team with team members in 9 countries now. We started out with consumer, but we're now working on a solution for enterprises, for education, for government, for charities and NGOs that we're calling Iluna for X. What's really important about what we do is that everything is rooted in positivity, since all the negative news around climate change and sustainability makes people numb and switch off. So it won't be us leading with messaging around burning rainforest, rising sea levels, or melting icebergs. We also believe that together as a community, we will drive environmental and economic impact. Prior to Iluna, for more than 25 years, I've been establishing and running US technology startups and mid-stage companies in Europe, with offices across Europe. And I've often been the first person on the ground in Europe, establishing the companies, building them and running them to the point of IPOs or other types of exits.
Thank you, Lars. And I will go to the next Lars on the list, Lars Wallström.
Oh, thank you.
Sitting in Portugal. We're an international Nordic team.
Exactly. But right now in Portugal, and even with a shirt on, it's very, very hot and sweaty. So my background is, I did my first startup in 1990 in the marine software business. And we sold that to Norway for a surprise. But then I've been in larger corporations, and I spent quite a few years at Oracle, where I had international global roles. I've done startups since. I've been involved in several. I've been in one where we did really well in the Nordics, but we were 10 years too early for the rest of the world because they didn't have broadband coverage. So that was one lesson learned. But we luckily made cash flow positive through our Nordic customers or Scandinavian customers. So the last 10 years I've been working with private equity and jumping in here and there, and I'm more of a fixer guy than a board member. And now I'm actually co-founder and partner of Health Tech Lisboa, which is connected to Startup Lisboa, which is the Portuguese initiative for startups. And we take care of health technology startups, which is normally a mix of medtech and AI deep learning. And they often come from research from universities and stuff like that. And then we make companies out of them.
Very, very interesting. It's probably as we go through here, we're seeing a lot of different industries, but I'm going to go back to sustainability with Hans-Peter and Rune from B Corp. If you tell us a little bit about your company as well, and then we're off to the races.
Yeah, so my name is Hans-Peter Kildahl. Most people just call me HP for short. I'm the CEO of B Corp, and I also have Rune Bøhn with me, which is our CDO. So you want to say some words?
Well, I'll leave it to you to present the company first, but I'll keep my presentation short. Basically, I handle and try to convert HP's idea into digitalized applications. I would say for short, and I'll come back later.
Yeah. So B Corp is all about helping global companies to document the renewable origin of their electricity consumption. And the challenge here is really that corporates around the world, they cannot track electrons. It's not possible to track electrons, but they still want to show that they're renewable, that they are consuming renewable energy, because how the energy they consume is produced has a huge carbon footprint. And what we see as the only actual solution to this is a digital ecosystem for transparent tracking of renewable energy directly between producers and consumers. So it's a peer-to-peer model. And by doing this, we are enabling these global clients to claim credibly renewable energy. And also through our Tinder for renewable energy, we are able to make these companies choose their own sources directly. We were founded in 2018. We are tracking now 15 billion kilowatt hours of renewable energy globally. We have clients from East Asia to North America, and from South Africa to far north in Norway. I would say we are situated in Norway, but we are true global. We don't have any borders to our digital ecosystem, and we also have a true green philosophy in the basic of our company. Our company is owned by energy utilities, the founders, and the employees.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hans-Peter. Thank you, Rune. So let's get cracking. Let's get into the meat of the matter and hear your perspectives on these questions. I'm going to throw it to you all. So first one, scaling international is fundamental for many startups, especially if their home market is limited, for example, the Nordics. But what are some of the different approaches and what are some of the risks? So I'm going to go to Lars Ronning in the car. You've been responsible for expanding many US startups into Europe, as well as more recently planning the growth of your own startup. What are some of your observations on this?
So I'd say that that some of the key observations are that although the world is getting smaller, it continues being very important to one's success that you are relevant locally. And that can be a really difficult balance if you've been hired to introduce and expand, for example, a US company into Europe. You need to be global and local at the same time. So where I've had the most success is actually with a combination of headquartered staff US staff that has been parachuted into Europe for a period of time, and then working alongside the European hires for some time in order to get the culture right. And that has enabled us to build some really strong businesses across Europe. So getting it right locally with the right hires, the right partners who invest in your product is critical. I've had some expensive learning experiences hiring the wrong people in places like Italy, where it's really expensive to get rid of people again. So getting it right is really important. Otherwise, you end up losing a lot of time and money. So at Iluna, we are using the same formula, getting the hires and getting the partners right. What we've also been using successfully in our company is driving business customer acquisition through our consumer users. Because at heart, when a consumer is at work, he or she is an employee at work, but is still a consumer. So we've had a lot of inflow, leads flowing into our funnel, actually from consumers working at companies recommending their employer that they should start looking at Iluna. So yeah, getting the right balance in terms of being local and global at the same time, I think is key.
I just wanted to ask one other question based on that, because it was kind of interesting. What you said about the success of bringing, if the HQ is in the US, bringing some US people over initially to get the ball rolling with a new country in order to really drive the culture. So do you think that's also important if you were a Norwegian company to actually have Norwegians coming and opening offices in France or wherever it is to get the culture right? Or is it more of a US versus Europe thing?
No, I would say that it's equally important for European companies expanding through Europe if you've got the capacity to do so. Of course, if you're only a handful of people in your headquarters in Norway, for example, you might not be able to do it. But I would absolutely recommend it because it's also the best way to evaluate people, to test people, to really work alongside them for a period of time.
That's interesting. Okay, thank you. So now I'm going to go over to Andreas. So Andreas, Neptune's predominantly grown organically with very little VC funding up until recently. How did you approach your international strategy? Because as you said, you've got 5 or 6 offices now in around the world. How did you approach that?
Yeah, so we got offices in London, Hamburg, US, China, and headquarters in Oslo. So from day one, we acted as a global company in our communication and our website, and quickly gained an interest to our product worldwide through a free version download from our website. And we were quite active in the community space around SAP. And as I said in the introduction, this is where we kind of started. So we kind of got a spin-off. So it was a great start for us to establish connections and contacts with developers and partners and potential clients all over the world, which was a good starting point for our lead database. We established ourselves in Germany just 2 years after we founded the company, then in the US and then in the UK, 2015 and 2018 in the UK, 2015 in the US. So in the beginning, except for US, our daughter companies was operating through a franchise model where we got connected with local entrepreneurs that really understood our product and wanted to take it to market locally. But in 2018, we gathered everything. So now every subsidiary of Neptune is fully owned by the mother company.
So let me ask you, I was just going to pry into that because I think you touched on a really important point for some startups. So if you are growing organically, you don't have a big injection of cash from a VC, opening offices can be kind of expensive and risky. but you actually started by looking for entrepreneurs who recognized the opportunity with Neptune and wanted to build a business around you. And that was your franchise model. And would you recommend that? Were there any issues later when you want to, you've built the revenues to be able to invest in local? What were the pros and cons of that approach?
Well, at some stage you come to some tough discussions around if you want to incorporate all the franchises into one company, which we did. But our experience around that was good. It was flexible on both sides, so we solved it quite good for both parties actually, and still these people are working and are 100% engaged in the company. Franchise model is sort of a de-risk way of starting a new territory. I would say that it's a shared risk with a local entrepreneur, and a quick way for us. It was a quick way for us with at the beginning not much cash to expand our footprint and have presence, physical presence in Germany, for instance, which by culture you need to speak German, and you need to do business in German in order to do business in Germany. In the last, and in the beginning, and having this set up, the downside of it is that you operate purely on a vertical with P&L focus and entrepreneur focus in the territories. And what we've done the last 2 years is to structure ourselves completely differently, where we call it One Neptune, and establish now a platform as one global organization working across any territory, classical matrix structure, streamlining sales, marketing, operations, and finance as one company, and then the territories is more distribution locally.
Very interesting. I'm going to go to Hans-Peter and Rune. We were chatting earlier about how you had some challenges in some markets, and I think it's in your particular segment, and with you remember you were talking about one particular market that because of the culture and the structure of the energy sector there, it's much tougher for you to break into. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and your experience of, what you've done? Should you continue or should you move on? What's your experience there?
Sure. Germany has already been mentioned, and it's not to sort of put a red flag on Germany in any way, but also for us, Germany was an interesting item or an interesting market to look into. But first of all, our home market isn't Norway, so we actually don't have any clients. Well, we have one client in Norway, but they are a global industry company. So other than that, our business is already international, and now we consider Europe as our home market anyway. So we never really considered Norway as a potential market area. When we looked outside, we saw that Germany was interesting. It was a large economy. It was a conscious population, which is also now confirmed with the Green Party more or less having a very good result in the election. But there were some challenges because in our way of business, we are talking to a very conservative part of the German industry, that is the energy business, the utilities, the Stadtwerke, which there are many of, but they are also very founded in their old ways of working. And to get in there, we either we would have to spend a lot of time and a ton of money and people to get through the barrier, or we could partner up with the locals. So what we did was that we built a strong network with a group of partners, which has proven very successful and is actually the main revenue channel at the moment for us in Germany. Another thing we
Yeah,
did digital marketing in order to break through the barrier. We had to show that we were much bigger than we actually were by a big digital circle around us.
So, but it's interesting that what we've heard from both yourself and Andreas is the importance of partners, the collaborative, just thinking beyond your own organization to create an impression that you're bigger than you are, or you're growing as well.
I'll give you an example. Yeah, a quick comment on that. Well, first time we were in Germany, we had a meeting with a partner, and we were presenting our product, and they pulled us, our contact pulled us aside and asked, how many people are you guys? We were debating it a little bit, around 150, 200. And I needed to, we were 4.
It's all about the right impressions. So exactly. I'm going to go on to Lars Wallström. Obviously, the speed to which companies expand often depends on how much funding they have. And if they have a large investment from a VC, often there can be a lot of pressure to dramatically expand fast. You've been advising a lot of startups and VCs over the years. What has been some of the mistakes that you've seen from maybe expanding too rapidly? And when should companies cut their losses and exit a market rather than think about continuing to put money in a particular market?
Well, it's if you get too much money too quickly, your model might not be proven. Like I've seen one good example that I lived in myself, where it was fine in the Nordics with the broadband coverage and the mobile data coverage for that unified communications product, which was really offering enterprise telephony over IP. So you had it in your laptop or your mobile, etc., and many devices. And that worked fine in Scandinavia. And and we went cash flow positive on Scandinavian service providers providing that technology. But even though we had studied, the broadband coverage of Germany and the UK, etc., beforehand, our studies were not granular enough, so it was impossible. It didn't work. You really had to put hardware on besides this in the offices of people. So we had to pull back. And the faster you realize that, the better. And we had raised 10 million euro to go international. So that's a good example of.
So where did you go? Where did you go in the end? Where did you expand to? Or
In
did
the
you
end,
stay in the home market?
Yeah, so in the end, we pulled back. We hadn't spent that much money, but you recruit a few salespeople, etc., and then you start realizing, shit, this is not going to fly. So then you have to pull back, and the earlier the better. And then we stopped in Scandinavia. We pulled back, stopped in Scandinavia, and the company was sold to Mitel of Canada, and but they haven't, and everybody got their money back with a little bit upside, and they had invested a hell of a lot in that platform, and but they still, this is still not time for this product, because in Germany it's still a underdeveloped digital economy, and so is the UK actually. UK has a worse mobile coverage than what was it, Pakistan or some Bolivia or something. Peru, I think it was Peru actually. So when we think we're in advanced economies in Europe, but it's sometimes not true. However, you have other examples where when you have done your homework, you have your product, you can sell, and the business value for any customer anywhere, or if it's in a manufacturing segment or something, then it's time to go. And then, like Andreas here, I know you have a fantastic solution, and you're doing really well. I really admire what you're doing, and I know your segment a little bit. The unicorn in your space is from Portugal, and I know some people.
Flip to US, right?
Well, that's one.
Now we're getting
yeah,
off pitch. Now we're getting
Yes.
off pitch.
So
I'm
that
gonna
and
bring
that
you
is
in,
one
Lars.
that's one discussion I have with every company I'm involved in. Not the ones in health tech, but they are too early. Well, we had one actually that we had some Americans from Syneos Health checking all our startups, etc. So there we had one that could launch. Why not launch in Cincinnati instead of Spain, or instead of France after Spain? It's the same amount of work, but when you're live in Cincinnati and it works, bloody hell, then you have 51 more states to go and you just roll it out.
Yeah.
And then you get
True.
50 million euro funding, and there you go. Yeah, and then you have
Very true.
500 the next time. So I think you have
the benefits of the American market. That is the benefits of the American market.
That's why we have this all the big players in the tech space are from the US. It's for a reason. But you know, you're from Norway. I was from Sweden. You have a family situation, so I cannot move. So you do it enough. But some can move. And I have another example actually from Portugal. Why data? So they make sure your data is anonymous. So it's actually not your customer data when you want to test new things. So Netflix, for instance, they were actually infringing GDPR and a lot of data rules when they are testing new stuff on what they think is anonymous user data. It's not anonymous, you can't trace back. So they have a solution for that, and they come from Portugal, and I've been their mentor. They just moved to Delaware, and they just closed for them a very big round. So they are in the AI space where you do this kind of stuff, and they are now predicted to be a great startup. I have another one where I'm an investor that could interest a lot.
Stop. Otherwise, we won't have time to get through the questions. We'll have to organise a follow-on session. So I'm going to move to question 2, so that everybody has a little time to speak. But really interesting as always, Lars. So next question: having the correct product market fit is critical to the success of most businesses. Within the digital market, that usually means having the ability to constantly innovate and pivot. And Runa, I wanted you to talk about, because I know in our last conversation, we talked a lot about the importance of your digital stack in enabling you to be agile in your development, but also to meet your customer needs. Do you want to talk about how important that has been to you and give some of the startups on the call something to think about there?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, when we entered into this market in 2018, we kind of met 1980s kind of stockbroker market where they were dealing over phone, calling buyers and sellers. So basically no digitalization. So we had some great thoughts, but we early experienced that our ideas were way ahead of the market. So we needed to adjust. So we decided to do a couple of things, like we had to adjust to the market on the one side, and we wanted to shape the market on the other side. So for doing this, we needed a way to create mock-ups, demos, exemplifying what we actually want to offer the market. So we found a flexible way of working with the mock-ups. HP brought them to the customer, showed them, and he could sit in the sales meeting more or less playing around with the mock-ups and getting feedback from the customers. And several of our market or the products we created, for instance, the marketplace already mentioned, is a result of this. And being an old SAP programmer, having Neptune at hand in SAP, it was a short way for me to also experience the use their new multi-experience development platform. So this brought us to have a full stack proven set of development tools with a lot of examples, plugins, like building blocks and everything that made it very easy for us to create these mock-ups and what we presented to the customers at the same time as we could use the same building blocks for developing the systems. So
you because you're a business-to-business company, your potential clients have very customized needs. You're going into a customized kind of sectors. You have to work with them to present a solution that is resonates with them, is mirroring their processes, etc. And you've used Andreas's product handily to help you to do that. But it's because of these agility, these building blocks, that you're able to make those personalized experiences.
We have to spin a little bit back, because our customers doesn't have very clear views on what they want. And if we just had gone out and asked our clients, they would have answered just like they answered Henry Ford. They would have said, I would like a faster horse. So that's why these mock-ups were so important, because we had to show them something that they haven't really that they needed before, because they didn't have a spec on what they wanted. We had to really shape them before they were ready to execute.
Yeah, an MVP type thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on to Lars Ronning. So you're working already in over 50 countries and have data coming in from multiple sources. So having looked at your platform, it's very much a kind of social platform. And so you're getting data from all over the place. How are you using that data to understand your customers' needs, and what do you do with that data?
Yeah, so again, it's a matter of figuring out what works locally and what doesn't, because with what we're doing, we need to be able to be relevant to people locally around sustainability. So we have built the app around a tool stack that enables us to really track every user's actions within the app, within the training programs. So literally we can see within the flow, where people turn left, where they turn right, where they drop off, where they engage. And that is something that we are using to really make sure that we get the content right for the people that we wish to target. Something that we're also going to do fairly soon is start implementing AI to become even more relevant, because every person likes to be spoken to in a more personal manner than just being spoken to very generically. So that is something that we are using data to, and we also of course use data in our marketing, within social media, within our blogs, to figure out what content works where. So yeah, we're using data in all shapes or forms. And I think what's important in our approach is that we planned for this from day one. So it's not something that we have been fitting retrospectively to the tool. So when we set out to build the platform, we build the platform around being able to get this data out of the platform from day one, because we know that we needed it at some point. And now is where we need it, and now is where it's helping us to make better decisions in terms of what we develop. So we make sure that we deliver proper product market fit.
Yes, and so Runa and B-Core, they're B2B, few large customers, whereas you hope, as you expand, to have millions of customers, B2C and B2B as well. So it's kind of different, being able to use data in different ways. Andreas, you've used or you have built a really strong community of users across the world. How are you using the data or the input from your community platform to engage with users and improve your products?
So since the very beginning, core to our DNA and culture is constantly listen to our customers and partners and developers using our product directly into our research and development and innovation. And everyone in Neptune is part of this conversation. I always say that everyone is in sales, but everyone is also in product development. So all of these inputs are going into our R&D department. And we're quite clear on that. We never want to be a complete lab product, but a real life with real experiences development and innovation platform together with our community. We've established a community page a couple of years ago to kind of structure a lot of this information, and we also see that community is helping each other, and now there's thousands of users there, and we really encourage this usage of this platform. And we spend a lot of time and effort as well to personally get back to those contributing and give them credits and highlighting them, mentioning and show that it really matters and that we truly appreciate it, and we're happy to put someone forward who had a great idea, which is now part of our product, right? So it's this
it's very, very active and vibrant community.
Yep.
Lars Wallström, so how important do you think having data insights is in raising funding? And I think this is a really pertinent question to any startup looking to go their next round of funding. How much do VCs actually look for startups to present real data insights in terms of customer engagement and growth when they consider funding?
Well, people talk about VCs as startup investors, but in my world, they are not. They only invest in proven startups where you can calculate if you put in 5 million euro in marketing, you get this many leads and you close this many deals and you get this much revenue. So they are actually not that big risk takers generally. Sometimes they go outside of this. So normally before you meet them in Europe, you meet business angels, and they are also today really deeply looking at data on your metrics and stuff. And you cannot go international until you have proven, you know, how it works with your model in some kind of geography and etc. Sometimes you have something that you can go global with quicker, but then it's usually not a normal product that you're selling. It's some social media or whatever, like Spotify was once upon a time. And I'm actually an investor in something named winealley.com that is going global immediately in a few weeks, because they have the world's largest database of wines, but then it's not the wines, it's the grapes per wine. And then they combine that with the meals of a restaurant, but it's not the meal, it's the ingredients of the meal combined with the grapes. And then you suddenly have a sommelier. And then they can start selling wine at retail prices to bring home and stuff. And that's they were actually persuaded to go global by LVMH. They were planning to do the Nordics first, but LVMH, as we say, you know, they own a lot of champagne brands and stuff. There are a number of backers of this that persuaded them to release globally immediately. But it's all about data there.
Yeah, in that example, did they have data on, did they have a sort of beta version that they had launched? Did they have engagement data? Could they show a history? Or was it just an idea and then they got investor funding there?
No, I wrote it on the chat there, winealley.com. No, they have a history in the industry, and they know all the key players already, and they have people in Montreal, London, Paris, etc., that are involved in this. They already have, when they started talking to investors, they already had a huge database they had built, and now they have 780,000 wines in their database.
Wow!
And they use AI on top. Yeah, it's a huge thing.
So it will be
interesting to follow.
Running out of time. We are running out of time. I'm going to start the other way around now. I'm going to ask what last question very quickly, so we maybe get a couple of minutes for questions, for answering the questions that are there. Lars Wallström, if there is one piece of advice you would give to the startups listening about how to be successfully scale, what would it be? In one
Sell.
sentence.
Sell.
Sell.
Yeah.
Okay, so Hans-Peter, your turn. Bruno, what would be your sentence?
Of course, sell. I'm very fond of that myself. But also, I think one advice is the following. Bicor has been blessed with 3 things that has enabled us to be very focused. And that is lack of time, lack of people, and lack of money. So with these 3 blessings, we have been able to be very precise on what we spend our resources on. And I think that's very important in order to gain success.
So focus.
Yes.
Okay.
Taylor,
running.
Yeah, I think thinking and planning globally from day one is critical if you've got global ambitions. It also goes with the product that you're building, making sure that the product is prepared for localization, for local adaptations, for local measurement and tracking.
Great. And Andreas, over to you.
Yes, sell your product immediately from day one on your website and communication as an international player, and not specifically for your home market.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I think that I've personally learned a lot from this. It's been interesting. Some of the things that were said were unexpected to me, but it was reflecting on them. I think there is a lot of truth in some of them. So I'm just looking at the chat, and there was a question from Chiara D'Amico to everybody. What are some of your top tips to doing acquisition in Germany? Do you mean by that acquisition of customers, or acquisition as in mergers and acquisition? Chiara, are you still there? You are, just put it in the chat. If not, we'll take a guess.
No,
we'll take
there,
a guess
he's there.
Say,
Know your
there.
shit.
Sorry, I'm not.
Would be my advice on that one. I think Andreas knows better.
B2B acquisition of customers. B2B acquisition of customers. Andres, do you want to try it? Because you've been very successful in Germany around B2B acquisition of customers.
Key to us was local network. Find that through your network and search for that local entrepreneur that knows the market you're going into. That has been everything for us, I would say.
I second that.
Okay, there's another question. Let me just read it. In my organization, we are growing internationally and rapidly, but we are struggling from a product development point of view to keep up with the demands of the local markets. Sales are running away, but product development is struggling. What advice do you have for this growth pain? Anybody want to take that? So basically, they're selling a lot, if I understand, but they're having problems keeping up with all the requirements.
Yeah, I can recommend a really good low code development platform to speed up the product development.
Yeah, there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut around that. I've been in those situations too in the past, and you have to fix it. There's no shortcut. It's just going to hurt more and more. So I actually think Andreas is completely right there.
And it's a matter of focusing your sales activity in the markets that you can actually satisfy. and then raise enough money and to speed up development, so you can satisfy more markets.
Yes. And Gata Aquila has asked how to handle different customer requests when scaling up to different regions. I mean, it's very linked to the last comments around focus as well, and deciding which region you really want to conquer. If you have enough funding, it doesn't necessarily mean you've got enough scope, because it always takes time to ramp as well. But any tips there? Lars, anything? Lars, Lars is.
Yeah, well, I'm involved deeply as investor, and I've also worked a lot with them in one startup in alarm enablement, which has won 95% of the municipalities in Norway, their partners, when they have changed patient alarm systems, which this is powering actually. But there, when you go into a new country, it's a lot of nitty-gritty detail on APIs and a lot of regulations. So they're in the UK now doing a lot of stuff. We are actually doing stuff here. And it's a lot of nitty-gritty, and there's no way around it. You have to have everything organized and fixed. So it's a lot of work,
yeah, so
and it's man hours, specifications, and you got to fix everything.
And
it's boring as hell,
really.
but very necessary.
And it's a matter of having the right tools available, so you actually are able to track and monitor and prioritize what's important. So you make the right decisions, because it's very easy to make the wrong decisions, because you make your decisions based on gut feel, which is not always right.
That's usually not right.
So would you say? would you say? I mean, as we're saying this, I'm thinking there's a sort of matrix here between the market opportunities, so the size of the market, the complexity of the market. So your alarm system thing, example, saying, what are the regulations? How difficult is it going to be to have our products ready for that particular market? How much effort is it going to take? And how quickly can we get that payback as well? How difficult is that? So I think those are the choices you need to make when you go in.
And often you don't have the full. You don't have the full calculation. We enter here, and then in the end you find out things as well. But then you just grind it out and fix it.
And have the courage to walk away. Have the courage to say no, and we're not going to do this.
Yeah, that's the hardest.
If it's too much.
Yes.
Has anybody got any other questions? I think I've got 2 on the Q&A. Have I missed any on the chat? One new message. Hang on a sec. Seeing that. Oh, thank you. So thank you. I think we can close here. Very satisfied. I would have liked this to go on much longer. So maybe we need to organize another forum where we can each talk for ages, because you each have so much knowledge to give, and it's been so interesting to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for being part of this panel. And I look forward to meeting you all in different moments in the future as well. As everybody's saying, great panel, good guys. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll follow up. And there is a video, I believe. Charlie, do you need to say anything at the end to just close us off?
No, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to our panelists for a great discussion. I will follow up to all with a recording of the session, and look out for the next invite. And with that, have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.